Hey everyone, and welcome to Hooked on Needles and Crafts. Today we're going to be doing another itty bitty knit kit from Five Below. For my returning subscribers, thank you so much for tuning in. And for my new viewers, please consider subscribing, share, hit that like button, leave a comment below, and click on that notification bell for future videos. So today, you guys, I have another itty bitty knit kit. We are going to be doing a cool kitty by viewer request. If you have any requests, please comment below. If you don't want to wait for me to find the kit, go ahead and send me clear images via email. My info is in the description box, as well as my about page on my channel. So I'm in a dilemma, you guys. I have probably 3 more requests that are not Halloween oriented. And the problem is I have 5, I have about 5 and actually 6 Halloween kits to go, and there's only 2 weeks left of Halloween. What I'm going to do is try to finish this kit and one more other this week. I'm going to take a look at next week. I really want to get a jump ahead on Halloween, so I may be putting this one out. As well as fancy ketchup if I can get to it this week. Otherwise, next week I'm just gonna have to put it off so I can do the Halloween kits. There's no sense into doing Halloween the week after Halloween, you know. So anyway, let's get to this. This knit kit comes with stuffing, knitting needles, a felt piece here. What is this for? Oh, I guess for the beret. Felt stickers, plastic needle, and spools of yarn. So let's open this booklet. Here's the instructional booklet. Here's the pouch of stuff, and then here are the spools of yarn. In the pouch we have the knitting needles, stuffing, the felt thing that we're going to turn into a beret somehow, and then the felt stickers and a needle. Right, always keep your tools. I've saved all of my kits in case I ever need anything on a rainy day. Putting all this stuff back in the pouch so it stays nice and clean. Get to this. I love these booklets. It has a lot of illustrations and text to help you do this kit, and then it also comes with a ruler for you to use, so you don't have to go get your own ruler. So there's pretty much everything you need here other than scissors. This video, you guys, is a supplement to the kit. I'm starting to get weird comments about showing the instructions, and due to the copyright, I can't do that for you guys. Sorry. So if you'd like to make this kit, I highly recommend that you check on the Five Below website or in your local store, or not, because I venture far and wide sometimes to these stores. I found a few kits people have been asking for in another state, so that's how crazy it is. But yeah, I highly recommend that you get these. So I will go over new stitches at least 3 times step by step, and then thereafter I'm going to go my normal pace. I do get comments about slowing down. You can click on the gear button in the corner. They have playback options to go fast or slow. If you don't need to hear me talk, you can lower the volume on your device and click on the CC closed caption button. Alright, so let's get straight into this. We're gonna go into madness because it looks like this kitty has some striping going on. So what I really don't like about this is that it doesn't tell you straight away like what color to use. So I'm going to read further down the instructions. Okay, so it looks like we're starting with the gray, and this looks brown to me, but okay. And it tells you the size of the rectangle. So it looks like we're just making one rectangle. It's just going to be striped. So that's a good and bad thing because it's only one rectangle, but we have to do a lot of color changes, which can be complicated sometimes. So I'm just going to open this up here. Okay. All right. So we're starting with the gray, and it says the number of rows. Now, if you saw my last video or previous videos, we realized that sometimes each row consists of 2 passes, going one way and then going another. And in the same instructions, it didn't quite measure up because the number of rows they mentioned were almost the number of passes. So this is going to be a little difficult one, I feel. We just have to keep in mind the length of the rectangle and the number of rows that we have. So in the gray, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. So as long as you do 6 rows of the gray and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of, what is this, beige, the cream, you should be fine. Try to make it as close as possible, but definitely make it measure the measurement of the rectangle, because at the end of the day we have to sew this together and we want it to be the same proportions as the instruction says, so that your end result looks the same and not smaller, not bigger. So let's do this. I'm gonna measure off the tail off camera. All right, so I have my tail here. And what you want to do with this tail, you don't want to confuse it with the feeder yarn. So we're going to put this off the table downward. And then the feeder yarn you want out of the way, and we're going to leave it upward. So pinch real tightly at this mark. This mark is the measurement of tail that the first instruction tells you to do. Then what we're going to do is take the middle finger and ring finger, and we're going to hold it about a ways apart. You want to keep this side a little bit loose and this side pretty tight. So you're going to take 2 fingers here, you're going to lift up and turn down to make this loop. Then we're going to grab our feeder yarn with the index and middle finger and pull it through that loop to create a large knot, as you see here. So don't pull the side that has the feeder yarn, pull the side that's on top right here. What we're going to do is pull this top side, at the same time push this loop towards your thumb. You want to get it close to that measurement mark for the tail, and you want to keep pulling at this knot until it tightens up, and either you hit your thumb or the knot gets too tight and you can't push it anymore. So from this point, you want to take your thumb and index on your left hand and just pull a little bit more on that slip knot to make it snug. You don't have to pull it real hard. But now we're going to pinch the knot. We have this huge loop now. You want to pull on the feeder yarn to make a more manageable loop. So let's do that now. You want the size of the loop to be able to fit 2 needles. Okay. And then we're going to slip our needles in there. All right, you can always tighten up that knot again on the feeder yarn side so that your needles don't slip out. And then I'm going to gather up some yarn here. I'm going to show you guys how to cast on stitches. And to do that, you want to get into the knit position. So all these kits just use 1 stitch, and I think that's great. It's the most basic stitch in knitting. Once you learn this 1 stitch, you can use it for a lot of things like pot holders and scarves, things like that. Heck, even a blanket if you're very ambitious, but you're going to need a bigger needle than this, and a different kind of needle. But anyway, to get in your knit position, you want to X your needles, and you want the left needle to be on the front and the right needle to be in the back. And you want your needles to constantly touch. You see how there's that little surface touching? You never want something like this because you'll lose stitches that way. So always maintain contact with your needles. Even when you're setting this down and you're gonna set it aside for a few minutes or hours or days or weeks, you never want to keep them apart because then your needles will your stitches will slip off. Some people wrap their feeder yarn around the needles and then put it down to make sure that doesn't happen. But anyway, this is your knitting position to do the knit stitch. Left needle in front, right needle in the back. What we're going to do now is your feeder yarn for a knit stitch is always going to be towards the back. If you're holding it out here in front, this is for a completely different stitch. It's not going to work. So always have your yarn in the back. And what we're going to do is wrap this feeder yarn around the right needle from back to forward and down. Oops, back to forward and then down. We're going to slip it between the two needles. You're going to feel or hear it snap. Okay, we want it to get stuck into this little crevice. So like I said, always touching down into this crevice. It's now trapped there. The only thing left to do now is to slide this left needle down the right needle and down its back. It's going to force the feeder yarn through this loop, creating a new stitch. So let's do that now. Slide your left needle over the right needle. We're going to see a push of the feeder yarn, and that's why we maintain contact. There's no other choice for that yarn, and it's creating a new loop. So now we have to transfer this loop onto this needle. So take your left needle, stick it through that new loop, lift it up off the right needle and onto the left needle. So now you have two loops. Let's do this again. Stick your needle into the new stitch and get into your knit position. That's Xing your needles, left needle on the top, right needle on the bottom, feeder yarn in the back. We're going to wrap around the right needle from back to forward and down. You're going to hear or feel it snap. It's going to get stuck into this little crevice here. We're going to slide the left needle down the right, down the back, constantly touching the needles so that it forces the feeder yarn through that loop, creating a new stitch. And then we're just going to transfer this stitch over to the left by taking our left needle, picking up that new stitch and lifting it off the right. So now we have 3 stitches. One more time, you guys. Stick your needle into this new stitch, get into your knit position. That's the left needle on top, right needle in the back, feeder yarn in the back. We're going to wrap around the right needle from back to front and down. You're going to feel or hear it snap. It's going to get stuck into this crevice here. We're going to slide the left needle down the right needle and down its back, constantly touching the needles so that it forces the feeder yarn through the loop, creating a new stitch. And then we're going to transfer this new stitch onto the left by taking our left needle, picking up that new stitch and lifting it off the right needle. So now we have 4 stitches. So you can rewind this back and until you feel comfortable casting on stitches, but I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of the number of stitches required, and then we're going to move on to the next steps. Alright, so I finished casting on the stitches onto the left needle, and what you want to do is, I'm just going to mess this up a little bit. So as you're doing this, this might bend and twist. You want your project to grow down. So when you're done with every row, make sure that your project is all facing in the same direction, just in case, so that you don't accidentally knit your project with a little twist in there. I've done that in the past. It's really hard to kind of undo your work towards the beginning because it gets all flimsy and stuff. So just make sure that it's a straight line at the bottom there. Alright, so for this next instruction. Now the way that I've learned it, each time you make a pass is a row. Again, I don't know what they're trying to do in their instructions half the time, so I'm going to count a pass as a row and see what that looks like. Okay, so what we're going to do with the gray, I'm going to try doing the same number of rows and take a look at it and see if it looks like that would be okay to do. So let's do row one in quotation marks. Okay, so all this is basically the same stitch that we've been doing so far, which is the knit stitch. Instead of transferring it onto the left, we're going to keep it on the right, and we're going to lose a stitch off the left needle. So whatever number, for this instruction specifically, it's always going to be different in different instructions. Whatever number of stitches you have on your left needle, you want to end up on your right needle. So if you're plus or minus a few on here, something must be wrong somewhere. One of the things that gets messed up is your feeder yarn. You want to make sure it's down and back. You don't want it to be up and back because it creates an extra stitch without knowing. I've done that in the past, but that also goes again with making sure that your project is straight. So you can tell if you're holding your feeder yarn in the wrong position because your project is going to start twisting. So just make sure that your feeder yarn is always down and back. So from here, we're going to do our first stitch on our first row. So stick your needle into the first stitch here. Get into your knit position. Then we're going to take our feeder yarn and go back to front and down. You're going to feel or hear it snap. And then we're going to slide the left needle down the right needle and down its back, forcing a new stitch onto that right needle. And then again, we're going to keep this stitch on here, but we're going to lose a stitch here. So carefully slide down your stitches. We're going to remove this one stitch off the left needle, and it might be a little scary at first, but that's exactly what needs to happen. So we have one needle on our right needle, and then we have one stitch on our right needle, and we have one less stitch on our left needle. Let's do this again. Stick your hook into the next stitch, get into your knit position. We're going to go back to forward and down. You're going to hear or feel it snap. And then we're going to slide our left down our right and down its back, creating a new stitch on the right needle, and then we're going to lose a stitch on the left needle. So carefully slide your stitches down the left and remove this one stitch. Okay, so now you have two on the right, two less on the left. Let's do this one more time with you guys. Stick your needle into the next stitch, get into your knit position. We're going to go back to forward and down. You're going to feel or hear it snap. Then we're going to slide the left needle down the right needle and back, creating a new stitch. Then we're going to slide this stitch off the left needle, just like that. So now we have 3 stitches on the right, 3 less on the left. So just continue this down the row. You can rewind this part until you feel comfortable, but I'm going to go at my normal pace. Alright, so I've completed this row. Again, I'm going to try doing the number of rows they tell you and see how long that makes it. But now that we have completed a row here, the dilemma is how do we do the next row? So you always, if you're righty, you always want stitches on the left needle. Since this is empty, we're just going to switch needles. So take your left needle and push it towards your right. Then we're going to take our right needle and we're going to flip it over to our left. And it's as simple as that. Now we can start a new row. Again, you want to make sure that your project grows down so that everything is in a straight line, or at least as straight as possible. And then we are back here, keeping your tail down this way, feeder yarn up this way. We now have our right needle being empty. So I'm going to complete this, doing the same thing again. This is going to be row 2. Alright, so I completed the number of rows or passes that they're asking for, and I think it kind of matches the photo. So I would say, yeah, go with the number of rows so far, because now we have to transition to the cream color. So I'm gonna just undo this. And then I'm going to show you how to start up the slip knot again. It does say you can just, you know, kind of tie it to the gray, but right now that's not what we're doing. We want to make a nice clean transition, kind of, if that makes any sense. Maybe as clean as we can possibly get it. So you want to take your ring, pinky, and thumb and hold one end. Then you're going to take your index and middle and hold the other. We're going to hold down this one pretty tight and this one kind of loose. Take your two fingers and push up on the yarn. We're going to turn it down to create this loop. Then we're going to take our index and middle finger and then pull that through the loop, creating this large knot. And then what we're going to do, I'm just going to put my thumb somewhere on here, and we're going to pull not the feeder yarn part, but this top part. We want to pull that yarn and then push the knot close to the thumb. That way we won't have too much waste at this end. It's similar to what we did the first time around, and then I did just pull this excess piece to make that knot just a little tighter, and we're going to grab that knot. Now we have to make this loop manageable, so now I'm going to pull on the feeder yarn and pull that to fit a needle in there. Alright, so we're here now. We're not going to cut this because we're going to use it again. So this is going to be a floater yarn. Now, what you want to do though is decipher which side is the prettier side, because you want your floating yarn to make a mess at that one side and not both sides, if that makes sense. So what you're probably going to want to use, there's two ways you can go about it. You can always remember that, let's say this looks like the not so pretty side. No, this one is the not so pretty side, because there's this clear line, whereas here it's a little blended. So this side is the right side. You can remember that the right side is going to have your tail on the left. If you have a marker, let's say, you can then put a marker, you know, at the bottom right of your project, indicating that you're looking at the right side if you can see the marker on your right. And then, like I said, if you don't have a marker, use your tail. The tail is going to be on the left looking at the right side, and that just unfocused. But anyway, so what we're going to do now, when you float this yarn and you keep it till you need it again, you want to keep it on the wrong side. So however you want to do it, we're going to trail this up the back. It needs to be on the wrong side. So as long as this doesn't stay in the front, you're good. But now what we're going to do is stick your needle into this first stitch here. Okay. If you want to hold this back, you can use your middle finger and ring finger to hold the gray back. We're going to slip on the white onto our right needle. Gather up some yarn here. We're going to now treat it as if we did the back to forward and down like we normally do, but it's going to be in the form of this slip knot here, and we're going to pull that through the loop. And like we would with any other row, we're going to slip this one off, and we're just going to continue now with the cream. So again, just knowing that this side is the wrong side, just keep all your excess pieces, all of your floating yarn now, just keep it in the back. And then I'm going to do this with you down the row, and then when we flip over, I'm going to show you how to deal with the extra yarn. And there is quite a gap, so I'm not sure. I would sometimes try to feed weave in and out this yarn, but I don't think that's possible. I think we just have to trail it straight up. But this looks like it's the same number of rows, so just keep track of how many rows you've done. Stitch markers like I just put here are a great way to keep track of how many passes you make, because I tend to forget all the time. So that might be helpful for you to use. All right, then you're gonna flip over your project. You see how it's getting a little twisted now with the yarns. We can move the tail out from underneath there. Okay, and then we're just gonna continue making our row. All right, so for the last one here, I'm gonna yarn over using both. It just tells you to drop it and then pick it back up, but when you pick it back up, there's a tendency to pull this and it's gonna bunch, or it's just this really unsightly loop that's gonna be hanging off of the back of your project. So I'm just gonna actually yarn over with both. So stick your needle into the last stitch here, and we're going to do the cream and the gray around the right and complete our knit like we would. When we sew this together, we'll be able to just hide this, so it won't be that bad. So then we're just going to flip the project, and we're going to scoop up both the cream and the white, and we're going to drop the gray, and you want to untangle your yarns here as you need to, right? Okay, so we have both loops, and this time I'm just going to do my knit stitch with just the cream. So at least what we did right there is just trail it up one row. And, you know, we're going to keep trailing it up as many rows as we need to do with the cream so that when we switch to the gray, we're not going to have this, you know, just drag it up there. But when we get to that point, I'll show you what it does. It's just tucking it into the stitches. Okay, so I'm just going to finish this row, and then you can rewind back to how I am knitting together the gray for the next several rows with the cream, and then I'll come back in and we'll transfer back to the gray. Let me just finish this first. I'm gonna have to get more yarn anyway. I always hate like spools like this. You could always just undo them and roll them into a ball, or if you have a tool that makes a really nice workable spool, then use that. I don't have those fancy fancy equipment. All right, so this is what it's looking like so far. We do have that trail. You're gonna see this little bit, but when we sew it together, we'll blend it in, so it won't be that big of a deal. But on this side, you see it's not going to be some yarn that we're just going to trail up like that. It's just, it could get caught, could poke out of your project. All right, let me gather up some yarn, and then I'll continue working on this, and on your end you can continue working on your project. All right, so now we're going to switch to gray. So like we did with the gray, we're now going to drop the white. So just pick up the gray here. And then we're going to keep the cream now in the back side, but put your needle in where we have both the cream and the gray. And we're going to knit those together and then do the rest of the stitches. And that's how you transition back to the gray. And then when I'm done with this row, I am going to continue doing the same thing for the remaining rows. Hopefully it measures out. It's really hard when it comes to these striped transitions. It's hard to control how long measurement wise each row should be, especially when they're not the same. So in the event of me on the last row or the last color section, if it's not measuring the amount of inches required by the instructions, I'm just gonna make the rest in gray. We're ending with gray, so I'm, you know, if it's too short, I'm gonna be building it out with the gray, and vice versa. If it's too long and I'm not done with the rows, I'm just gonna stop where it is, because like I said, that measurement's important. All right, so I'm gonna flip this over and I want to show you my transition. So this is the wrong side, and you can see the gray that we trailed up the rows, and it's not bad. Like I said, we can hide it when we sew it together. Now on the right side of things, you can kind of see it just a little bit more, but again, we can sew it to where we hide it. All right, and plus it's a striped cat. You know, their fur's not always perfect. But yeah, so I'm gonna move forward doing the remaining of the rectangle in silence. If you need to rewind, by all means take this opportunity to do so. And then when we come back in, I'm gonna show you how to cast off. Alright, so I've completed the required rows and it's still short. So I'm gonna use up this gray. And then if I run out of this, I'm gonna measure up the length of this rectangle, and if it's still short, I'll switch to white. But I gotta make sure that whatever I decide to do, that I have enough gray to get back to the cream, just in case I do run out of the gray and it's still short, if that makes any sense. Alright, so I'm hoping that this would be enough to finish casting off, but as long as I show you at least 3 times how to do it, if I run out, I'm just going to undo a row off camera and then come back in like nothing ever happened. So let me show you how to cast off. To do that, we have to knit 2 stitches. So go ahead and knit 2 stitches. Then what we have to do is leapfrog this stitch here over the next stitch, and you can use your thumb to kind of hold it back, but we're going to slip this stitch off the right and then off the left. Right, so now we have 1 stitch left on here. We have to knit stitch again to get 2 on our right needle. So do another knit stitch, then leapfrog this stitch over the next. You can use your thumb to hold this down. We're going to slide this stitch off the right and off the left. Alright, let's do this one more time with you guys. So knit another stitch. We're going to leapfrog this stitch over the next stitch. Hold it down with your thumb. We're going to slip this stitch off the right and then off the left. Okay. So you can rewind this part here until you get comfortable, but I'm going to try to do the rest of the stitches with this amount of yarn. So hopefully I can. If not, I'm going to pause it and then we're going to go, I'm going to fix it off camera and come back in and sew this cool kitty together. No, yeah, it's not going to be enough. I wish I had. And as you saw in my last video, I have no more white whatsoever. Okay, so off camera, I'm going to undo this and then I'm going to finish casting off everything. We're going to come back in and sew. Alright, so I have the last stitch here that, you know, you can no longer knit a second one because there's no more stitches on the left needle. So what we're going to do to finish this off, you're going to yarn over the needle with your feeder yarn. Then you're going to leapfrog this stitch over the yarn over, remove it off the right needle and remove it off the left needle. Then we're going to take the right needle and pull that piece of yarn all the way out and tighten it up. And so we have our finished rectangular piece. This still is a little short. Comment below, let me know if you were able to decipher the amount of rows. Clearly you need a lot more than would be here to here. We had, or at least I was able to do 1, 2, 3, like 3.5 more rows on top of what they're asking for, or color, you know what I mean. So that would be 3.5, that'd be 6, 7 passes. But anyway, so I'm going to remove the marker because we know that this side's the pretty side. The flip over, we have excess pieces sticking out. The stripes are not so nice and clean like this side. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fold our piece in half, and you want the pretty side to be on the inside. And I'm going to go grab my needle because we're going to sew this kitty together. Okay. Alright, so we're going to sew, this is going to be the top part. We have to sew the silhouette of a cat with its ears, the little dip, ears again. I'm gonna go straight down here. It's funny because they're asking you to leave a gap right in the middle. So I guess we can figure that out when we get there. But then we go back and we sew a little dome for the bottom. So let's do that now. And hopefully this is enough. Okay. So I'm going to use this corner to make one ear. And we're going to use straight stitches. So I'm just going to go in and out. Okay, and then pardon the background noise. I live in a small apartment, so you're hearing the television. Not mine. It's not the one that I'm not in the room that I'm in. Okay, so straight lines. I mean straight stitching. Okay, and then I'm going to make the tip for the other ear. So start climbing up to the other corner. Okay. And then once we hit that other corner, we're going to come back down and try to pick up where you skipped the stitch. So hopefully you can see where your stitches are. We're going to go back down. I can kind of see my stitching, so it's not too hard, so hopefully you'll be able to see yours as well. Now that I just said that, okay, I was like, where am I? Okay. All right, and then from here we're gonna go straight down. And where we knitted the other color, to hide this, you just have to knit just outside that stitch. So what I mean is, I'll show you. So you see how we have this color here? Just want to make sure your needle comes out kind of over exaggerated so that when we flip this inside out, it's kind of hidden. So as you can see, I'm kind of a couple of stitches in. Right. Now I'm going to leave this bit open. What you could do is sew one side and go in and out until kind of skip that stuff. Okay. So now we can continue doing our little kitty bottom. We're going to come back up and round the other side. Okay, and then once we're here, we're going to come back around and go where that gap was so that we can finish that off. Okay, so now we have our little gap here. I think we have to turn this inside out. Alright, so hopefully this needle stays on, but I'm going to flip this inside out, see what we got now. And then make sure the ears that we made, you point those points out so that you can see the ears right there. Okay, so now we can stuff, and this is all you get. I don't know about that. I do have my own stuffing, but I'm just going to use what they give me. Wow, terrible. You know what, this is horrendous. I want to add more stuffing. I'm going to add more stuffing. I can't. Here's my stuffing. It's just too skinny. This is a skinny cat. No bueno. Okay. Just a little bit more. If you have the opportunity to use more stuffing, I recommend doing that. You could always buy this stuffing online or at a craft shop in bulk. got mine at 32 ounces, not knowing exactly what that meant. So there you go. Anyway. Alright. Then we have to stitch this closed. But at the moment, I have all this frill. I wonder if this is my... That's a lot. Let me just cut this. Because I might use it for the beret. However, I might use like a different color because it's orange and you're going to see the white. But now I'm just going to... I'm not a sewer, so I'm just gonna try to finish this as best as I can. Okay, and then once I've sewn all of the sides closed, I'm gonna find a moment to tie a knot. Okay, and then we're gonna go into the body in one end and come out randomly on the other side somewhere. All right, and then I'm going to just cut this, and to hide that little piece, just squish your kitty so it's gone. All right, let's see, we gotta find a nice front face side. So I'll pick this. All right, so now we have to stick on the eye and the mouth stickers. And this is so tiny, and I don't think the perforations are nice, so be careful peeling it. Maybe cut it. Alright, so this is gonna go in the white spot. I'm just gonna stick this right in the middle, and then make sure the sticky hits as much of the surface as possible, so just press firmly and hold it down for a few seconds just to make sure that the adhesive is touching as much as it can. You can also take a fine needle and sew around the edge. I've never done that, so good luck if you do. And then we're gonna put the eyes in, but so far so cute. Same thing with the eyes. Hold it down. And then we're supposed to sew whiskers on here, but I don't have enough. My kitty's not gonna have whiskers, unfortunately. I should have just made stickers as the whiskers. Okay, and then we're gonna put the other one, try to make it even as best you can. Right, and then if you have enough yarn, sew your whiskers on. There are going to be 2 coming out of each side here. I could use embroidery floss, but I'm just not going to even bother. Alright, and then I have to figure this out. So you have to thread the holes with the orange, and then we're going to pull the ends to the center. So I have this red here. If you're not able to have somewhat of a similar color, then just use the yarn that they give you. But what we're going to do is I'm going to come up from underneath the square at each perforated hole. Okay. Oops, hit the camera. Okay. Then we're going to pull the ends, making the corners kind of pull into each other. Yikes. This is not that great. You're better off just cutting a circle and then hot gluing it on there. Alright, and then I'm going to tie these two together. I guess I can see it. And you might have to double knot, so let's do that. Right, so I've double knotted it, and then they're saying to press in any corners with your fingers to make the shape more round. I mean, really? Maybe if you put in like a circular coin or something in there. But this is it. This isn't getting any better. So, yeah. Alright, last but not least, we're going to use the yarn ends to stitch the beret on the head. I love how they somehow ended up with the most perfect beret. It's a little annoying, to be honest, because now it's making me like, you know, oh, how come I can't do that? But we're going to sew this on close to where it is. It's going to be this corner here, maybe like this. Want to find maybe a side that looks not so horrible. And there's not many sides here. Okay. Maybe we can have it tilted down. Okay, and then I'm just going to use the other end to tie a double knot. And then for each end, I'm going to go in randomly one end, come out the other. And I'm going to cut this flush to the surface like we did after we sewed the kitty on. Do it again for the other end here. Okay. So here is our finished product. That beret, oh my gosh, they could have just cut a stiff circle. The stuff is stiff as it is already. and then maybe just sew it on there, but whatever. Comment below, let me know how this went. This is what we were trying to achieve. All right. Pretty cute, cool kitty. All right, you guys, so I only have a couple more days left of this week. I'm going to try to get through my regular kits, maybe one more kit, if not two. But I gotta fit in the Halloween kits. And then once that is over, I'll go back to my list. So again, I have Feeling Saucy, Deal With It, and then I have Cup of Tea that I won't get to, and then there's Acorn after that. Oh, and you guys, I forgot. If you got this far, my other channel is offering a special NFL giveaway. It's 18 weeks. I post every Tuesday and close the voting every end of Wednesday. You have to pick who's going to win or lose. Whoever picks the most correct picks will end up winning. There's 2 winners, 1 nail winner, 1 craft winner. And each winner is going to receive a bunch of goodies, a gift card, and a 1-hour one-on-one session via StreamYard. So you get to put your camera on your phone like this. You can show me what you're working on if you're stuck on anything and I can help you, or if you just want to learn how to knit or crochet, I can help you. Or if you are inspired to start a channel, or you have a channel and you're looking for some advice, we can do that as well. Yeah, so I'll leave the link for my original channel in the description box below. Go over there and vote, and you also have to be a public subscriber. Alright, you guys, so there you have it. Thank you so much for watching. This is Hooked on Needles and Crafts. Please share, like, and subscribe for future videos, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks. Bye.